This morning I saw a post that began with a question. Actually, it felt more like a confrontation. The person said something like, "Are you sick and tired of feeling the way you're feeling?" And then they went on to make some offers and claims about how you could change yourself if you were sick and tired enough. I took great umbrage to that post. Every time I see a post like this, I take great umbrage to it. I started thinking about all the times in my own life when I was suffering enormously. And of course, I was sick and tired of feeling the way I was feeling. And of course, I wanted things to change. The problem wasn't that I hadn't decided strongly enough that I didn't want to suffer anymore. We're wired for pleasure seeking, friends. That part is hardwired into the human psyche. So we really can just put to rest the notion that somehow we are seeking pain. It's not true. I wasn't addicted to feeling bad or wallowing, even though I could have the propensity to inflict that double whammy of suffering on myself at my darkest times with my thoughts. How absurd. It's really just more evidence to me of how the thinking mind can get so incredibly offline and tangled in itself in spite of the sometimes heroic and wonderful things that it's capable of when capacity is there. That's why the thinking mind cannot be our foundation. The thinking mind needs to be informed by capacity, and capacity becomes available in conscious awareness, which is not another thought process. This is where capacity will be found again and again in the experience of conscious awareness. There's something that feels almost embedded in so much of the messaging we encounter in the healing and self-help world. I think we need to talk about that. At least I'm going to talk about it. And that's that there's this implication that can be subtle and then sometimes not so much, but it's there. Are you finally ready? Do you want it badly enough? Are you willing to do whatever it takes? As though somewhere underneath our continued suffering, there must be an insufficient desire to change, that we're somehow strutting around some hallowed mansion of suffering and pain that we are the king or queen of. That just feels incredibly and unnecessarily cruel to me. So to all of you who purvey that, I have to say, wake up. You're not helping. Imagine someone who's lived with depression for years. They've taken the medication. They've tried the behavioral therapies. They've gone to support groups. They've read the books. They've reached out to friends. They've gone to therapy. They've waited. They've worked. They've done the breath work. They've tried to understand themselves. They've done their very best to find ways to cope and to make life more bearable. And still, the depression is still there. Or the grief is still there. Or the anxiety is there. Or the trauma responses are there, or the thoughts that have tormented them for years continue to show up, or even things of a more recent nature to do with health, death, finances, loss, family. Yeah, I'm talking to you. So newsflash, for some of us, this is not a ride on an escalator at a mall where you jump off of it at the top to find that you're all healed, fixed, and complete. And if anybody who's listening to this comes from that realm, I'll just say right now, you're going to have to take it on the chin, friend, because what you're doing really does deserve a wake-up call. When it comes to your suffering, whatever you have or are struggling with, a question often emerges when we're feeling cut off at the knees. That question is, now what? Oh, I've asked it many times in my own life. The health diagnosis that had no fix, the death of loved ones, and the ensuing and often messy aftermath, estrangements, significant losses that will never be regained. And underneath that one question of now what is often a much more painful question that arises. What's wrong with me? That one gets curated when you keep trying all the weight loss plans, all the journal writing, all the holotropic breath work, all the attachment theory, whys and hows, another checklist, a mindset shift or reframe. They all have legs. I'm not saying they don't. But hang in here for a few more moments with me. We live in a culture that continually tells us in one form or another that if we do the right things, we'll feel better. And when we don't feel better, or it doesn't stick or stay for long, the conclusion, well, it's almost inevitable, isn't it? I must be doing something wrong. Maybe I'm not trying hard enough. Maybe I'm resistant. Maybe I can't heal. Maybe I don't have what it takes. Maybe I don't want it badly enough. Maybe everybody else can figure this out and I just can't. And now we've taken the original suffering and have layered something else on top of it. The belief that our continued suffering says something fundamental about us. Yeah, the final indictment, the one that we have maybe run from our entire lives, the one that says there's something fundamentally wrong with me. Well, I'm going to challenge that with this. Wanting something to change and having the capacity to change it are not the same thing. We can desperately want something to be different and not have access in that moment to the capacity required to make it different. And you can also have enormous capacity at times and still be unable to make certain thoughts, feelings, memories, losses, illnesses, circumstances, or whole realities disappear. Full freaking stop. Suffering is not evidence of insufficient willingness, nor is it evidence that there is something fundamentally wrong with you. And that's exactly where the distinction between conscious awareness, capacity, and choice becomes so important. We talk endlessly about choice. Make a different choice, choose a different thought, choose a different behavior, choose how you're going to respond, choose a different food. But choice does not exist in a vacuum. You don't just reach out into air and pick it up. Not in the world of the thinking mind. Choice becomes available from capacity. And capacity isn't something we can necessarily bully ourselves into having. That's the reason I keep returning to conscious awareness. It's not because conscious awareness is another strategy for making the difficult things go away. And it doesn't mean if you become aware enough, present enough, or spiritually sophisticated enough that you'll finally stop having painful thoughts and feelings. Conscious awareness gives us somewhere else to begin, a foundation we can come back to, a place from which we can recognize that this is here. Whatever is happening, this is what my mind is doing, this is what my body is doing, this is what I'm experiencing. And I don't have to immediately turn that experience into evidence that something has gone wrong. Maybe the question isn't always, how do I make this stop or go away? Maybe the question is, can I be here without abandoning myself because of this very hard thing that is here? And so what does that look like? It looks like a profoundly different orientation than what you may be used to. And this matters enormously for the person who's already tried everything that they know how to try, usually several times. That was me, the person who was freaking exhausted, the person who had just run one more time around the block of self-help and therapy, the person who didn't need another person asking whether they're finally sick and tired enough to change or to imply it. I was already sick and tired. I'd been sick and tired for a long time. And in those 5 years or so of compressed trauma, grief, and loss, you can believe I was exponentially sick and tired. I didn't need another demand that I become different, directed at me from others, or even from my own thoughts. What I needed was somewhere to stand, not to rail or emote or drown in any of that really hard stuff, but to notice a gateway, a window, a bridge, a doorway into a larger experience. Not a thought. It was conscious awareness. And maybe from there, capacity gets noticed. And from capacity, choice opens. Not because we've bullied ourselves into wanting change badly enough. It's because for one moment, we stopped making our suffering evidence against something being wrong with us. The persistent, what the is wrong with me story needs to be put to bed, or at least informed with a measure of capacity that we now know comes directly from conscious awareness. Conscious awareness and the capacity inherent within it helps the thinking mind do all the glorious things it's capable of doing. My free 7-day email series introduces the distinctions between content and context, and then the ever-fluid, what I call living life raft of conscious awareness, capacity, and choice, where experiential awareness feeds the mind, not the other way around. It's right here if you'd like some support. And every second Wednesday, I also offer a group for witnessing and accompaniment called The Gathering Place. It's completely free. We do a couple of experiential orientations around conscious awareness, and then provide an environment where you can share whatever's heavy and hard for you without having to change a thing. The links are in the description box up above this video, as well as in the comments section below. Thank you for being here today. With fierce love. I'll see you soon.